Okay. Hello. I'm your host, GHJ, from Goatverse Studio. Now, let's get into it. I know I haven't posted in a while because I've been looking more into biochemistry and more into the Hox genes and like DNA and that stuff. So my new videos will be way more detailed. And I'm planning to only post a video every other week, so like once every 2 weeks basically. It might be 2 weeks in a row and then a week off, then a video, then a week off, then a video, then a video, like something like that. Okay, but let's get into it. So, today we're going off of a biologically accurate transformer. Now, let's go off of where they would have evolved from. A planet made of metal. Earth is mostly made of metal and stuff, which sorta, but dirt is made of other stuff. So, but like dirt is mostly made of biological broken down material. So we'd have to go off of a planet like Mars, where it just has basically compacted dust. But we're not going to use Mars as a layout. We're going to use as if metal actually existed. In the new well, not new, but 2024 2025 movie Transformers 1, we are shown that on the outside of Cybertron there is organic matter, and I don't know if they showed water or not, but we will be using something like that. But there's an inter layer of Cybertron apparently, which is where they come from. And I'm using that version of Cybertron with the types of Transformers from TFP Transformers Prime because of they're the best versions and they show more bug like shit. So Cybertron and Transformers 1, there's organic material on the outside, and there's like water stuff on the inside-ish, but not really. Now let's go over the more Predacon, or whatever they're called, from TFP. It's shown that there were the dragon one, I forget his name, but it was a dragon that could transform into a person, basically. And then we also saw, like, this bug thing that could transform into a person-looking thing. And we saw Arachnid, which, was a, basically, spider that could transform into a helicopter or a person. So, we're going to be mainly going off of those. I do think it would be possible for it to turn into something-ish that looks like a human. Because, in my mind, what are Transformers? They're crabs. Now, hear me out. So beings like, anthropods, I think they're called, are crabs and such. But, like all bugs and stuff with exoskeletons, there is, a really valid theory. I don't know if it's a theory or if it's been proven yet, but they come from crabs or crab-like ancestors. But, so, Arachnid would be the most biologically accurate Transformer because she looks like a praying mantis. So that means that so what they'd most likely look like is a praying mantis. Now let's go over their bug transformations. Since they're crabs, some crabs can like go into their shell, kind of. So that's what I think their transformation would be. We would use a crab like there's a certain type of crab that can like put armor on itself, like shells and such. So that's most likely what they would have done. So, and now let's talk about energon. The energon is basically Transformers' blood, but kinda not really, because they run on energon and they need energon to survive, but they cannot produce energon. In the one episode of TFP, they created their own energon that kind of made them mentally weird, but they could still use it. And it was synthetic energon. It was green. And you know what else um has blue blood and is used as medical like things? Horseshoe crabs. Yes, crabs. They have blue blood because of the copper, which is a metal, which would be most likely found on Cybertron. Because I'm taking it that if we're following by real science, if a thing that big would have to be magnetic if it was made of iron, like they say. It can't be. And it's blue. The planet is shown to have like bluish, you know? So what my theory is, Cybertron is oxidized copper, which does not conduct electricity that well without energy, without an electromagnet, you know? And there's like no energy on the planet basically, except for energon, which would be copper, which would be basically a liquid copper, melted down copper. Which now let's go over the evolution of the Transformers. So basically, they'd evolve in from deep sea not deep sea, but deep trenches inside the planet's core. They'd be made of biological material that is soft, just like real crabs. But as we know, the Transformers, how they transform basically is in the Transformers movies. They have this inner shell or inner body that's like liquid, and then the outer body is made of metal or whatever. So that's how it like works, you know? So that's just like crabs. So they'd evolve to have armor, and that armor would be what they eat, and if they're eating metal or other creatures basically made of metal because the planet is mostly metal, they'd put that metal into their shell, which would the only metal they'd be eating is basically copper since their planet is non-magnetic. So that copper would affect their blood because humans use iron because it's what's in most of our food and we evolved that way. But the biological accurate Transformers would use copper, which would make their blood blue. It would also make the water blue if there's enough oxidized copper in the blood, which would be very helpful for seeing the energon rush down. And I do believe that in the biologically thing, they cannot produce their own copper. So they would need to constantly be eating the or drinking the water on their planet, which would be copper water. But since their planet was like destroyed or something like that, you know, where the copper doesn't run anymore, they can't produce their own blood. Well, I mean, they can, but it would be missing the main component that helps them stay alive. So what they would need to do is they would need to find oxidized copper crystals, which I don't know actually exists. Let me go look this up. And yes, there's such thing as copper crystals, which when they oxidize turn into a crystal thing that is blue. So that's what they need to survive. They basically need to inject copper into their bloodstream, which I mean they don't really have blood since they're crabs, but they have a different sort of thing that powers their body, but still basically the same thing where they need to inject the copper into their body. Since they don't eat material, they mainly just eat nutrients, and then they don't need food. They're so smart that they can make their own nutrients basically. Um but they still need copper, which if they're not eating biological substances, they would need to inject themselves with copper. Technically, if they wanted to, Optimus could just go down to the bottom of the ocean and start munching on like fish and stuff, which I don't know if fish have copper in their blood. They probably don't because they have red blood, which is oxidized iron and stuff. Well, I mean not you know what I mean. But crabs and like the horseshoe crab, they just started munching on the horseshoe crabs. They could basically live. So a biologically accurate transformer would have copper blood, and they need to inject themselves with oxidized copper crystals, which the oxidized version of the copper crystals would help not make them have a bunch of energy in them, but it would still help them attract oxygen in their blood substitute. Now let's talk about the transformation. How could they transform? They theoretically could, but it wouldn't really be like a transformation into a car. It would more of be like an armadillo or like a turtle, where they could go into their shell basically and become like a ball or like a pebble looking thing, which would still be very cool, but it just wouldn't be very threatening. So our final design of a biologically accurate transformer would be a planet that's made of copper, has copper in the water because of the stuff, which the water would oxidize the copper, making it blue. Life would evolve to be like a praying mantis that's evolved more like crabs, because crabs isn't a species. There's like hundreds of species that evolved to be crabs, basically. So, they'd be a crab that would be have blue blood from the copper. They would need to inject themselves with copper oxidized copper crystals, which are blue and very reminiscent to oxygen. You can go look it up. And they need to do that since nothing else is on their planet, since they wiped everything out when they like destroyed it or whatever it's called. So there's no other life that contains copper. So that's why they need to travel around and inject themselves with copper, since there's no other natural way to get it. And then the way they would transform is basically rolling into a ball with their outer plates like latching onto each other, kind of like an armadillo, in basically traveling and rolling places. And yeah, that's a biologically accurate transformer. By the way, next video is gonna be the fourth hybrid in the Hybrid War 2, but it's gonna be the third video of the Hybrid War 2. Sneak here because I haven't made the picture yet, but I'm just gonna tell you it's gonna be a fungal hybrid that if it gets into your nose, it'll take over your body. Like, it'll take over all controls and basically paralyze you while it shuts down your organs. So that's pretty cool. Gonna be my strongest hybrid yet. So this is the unedited version of this video. I will get the edited version probably out by Thursday, but it's because I've been designing something big for my next hybrid video, as I just told you. But I've also had to work on a coding for my financial literacy class. I know it sounds weird, but it is what I have to do in that class. But this is GHJ from Goatverse Studios. Chew the subscribe button and bye.